Alright, before we start, if you don't know anything about this movie, I say go in blind, because that's what I did, and it was a trip. So I knew absolutely nothing about this film before I saw it, other than the fact that it's like a vegetarian who has some meat or something like that. That's literally what the back of the box said, essentially. So yeah, spoiler alert. I'm telling you right now, go into this as blind as you can. So stop this video before you watch it. That's my suggestion. You've been warned. Knowing what the story is now, I mean, it still plays out pretty decently, but yeah, that's my place. Anyway, let's get to it. So Raw is a 2016 film. It's like I believe it's French or well, it's obviously French. The movie is in French. There's subtitles for English or whatever. But I think it's like a French-Belgium production or something like that. But it's in French. So we have this vegetarian girl named Justine who is going to college. And she's wanting to become a veterinarian. That's awesome. When she gets to the school, though, there's like almost immediately... it's apparent that there's one of those stupid like pledge hazing situations going on. So that's what happens. They like break into her room and they throw her mattress out the window and smash up all of her and her roommate's stuff. And her roommate is they pair her with a man. He's like, don't worry, I'm gay, it's all good. She's like, okay, that's weird. I like asked for a woman. He's like, same thing. Okay. Not really, but all right. Anyway, they smash the room up and they throw everything out the window, and it's just like all good fun and stuff. And yeah, so that hazing eventually leads to them basically telling everyone you're going to be referring to us as elders or like great ones or whatever until you hear this air horn. When you hear the air horn go, your pledging and hazing and all that crap is officially done. So can't wait for that air horn. Anyway, there's like I guess they all go to like a sort of rave or like nightclub underground on campus thing. I don't know what it is. Anyway, there's lots of debauchery going on. People making out and half naked and drugs and alcohol being indulged in and whatnot. And she's not really having a good time, but she runs into her sister who is also at this college. So she's like, Alex. Did I do the names? I can't remember. So, yeah, so we got basically three main characters. There's Justine, who's our main character, the vegetarian. We've got Alex, who's the sister. And then we have Adrian, who's the gay roommate or whatever. Okay, that's out of the way. So when I say names now, you'll know who they are. And there's only three really names that I need to remember, so I don't have to say buddy or dude man or whatever for every other second guy. So anyway, finds her sister. Her sister's like, oh shit, cool, let's get out of here. She's like wasted, but whatever. Anyway, they go off to like I guess an abandoned part of the place that they're not supposed to be in, she says, or whatever, and they're looking at like pledge photos of like all the different years or whatever, and they come across their parents, and the picture is like them coated in blood, like all together in a group, and then so that's coming, and it does. So essentially they before that, she has her first class or whatever, where she sees like a horse being tranquilized and like hoisted up and carried off to be done in surgery or something. I guess she's learning about. Well, she's doing vet classes, right? So obviously there's going to be some vet stuff. So anyway, there's that. Shows that very briefly. Then it cuts to like the blood soak initiation thing, where it's exactly what you expect it is. They're basically doused in blood. I don't know what blood of. I assume like animals from like the, I don't know, whatever. Excess blood. Good times. So being a vegetarian, I'm sure she appreciated that quite a lot. And then they're basically all standing in line, and part of the initiation is to eat a raw rabbit liver and chase it with a shot. And she's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm vegetarian. Like, I can't. My whole family is. Like, you can even ask my sister. Like, oh yeah, well, who's your sister? Alex. Oh, really? Alex, they call her down. You vegetarian? Alex is like, no. It's like, okay, well, she's saying that your family is... Basically, she's like, don't be a pussy, just eat it. And essentially, she finally caves and eats this raw rabbit liver and doesn't take the shot, though. And she's like almost vomiting over it because, well, vegetarian. Not only is it probably completely texturally different from anything she's eaten in many, many moons, but also the morals there. So, grief vomiting, maybe. Anyway, that goes about as well as you'd expect it to. So that's fun. Anyway. There's a nice scene where they're talking with their friends, and one of the friends is like talking about how AIDS happened from monkeys, and how it's like, oh, some guy wanted to have sex with a monkey, and that's how AIDS started. And it's like, okay, I'm sure that is. It's like, so now if anyone wants to have sex with a monkey, they have to wear a condom, I guess. It's like, okay, that's ridiculous. And then there's like a conversation about like violation of animals and how it's the equivalent to like violating a woman. That's like the Justine's position, I guess, essentially. And obviously a bunch of people are like put off by that, and that's just cut. I guess that's just sort of to show like how like vegetarian she is, or well, she's probably vegan, let's be real, which is commendable. Like, anyone who does that, hats off to you. I mean, it's definitely not a bad cause by any means, but anyway, we're not going to get into that. So yeah, so she's annoyed with her sister a little bit, like, why didn't you say something like, you know I don't eat meat, and basically you forced me to eat this, pretty much. Like, she's like, you did it yourself, you know, you have your own mind and all that. And anyway, they have a little fight, and the sister's basically like, listen, if you didn't do it, you'd be rejected by everyone there, and your life would be more hell than it is going to be already with this hazing shit, so just suck it up and deal with it. It's like, alright, fine. Anyway, she wakes up the next day with a rash on her, and like, she's really itchy, and she starts scratching, and she pulls up her shirt, and she sees like a giant rash where she's been scratching, but she can't stop scratching. It's just like overwhelming, and it's like almost to the point of drawing blood, so she like struggles with that. Anyway, the next day she goes and sees a doctor, and there's like a really gross scene of the doctor like peeling like skin off and stuff, and well, I mean, it's not that gross. It's like a sunburn peel, I guess. It's not like blood and pus or anything gross like that, but it's the thought of it, like peeling a rash, whatever. Anyway, that happens. They say, are you having an allergic reaction to anything? She's like, no. And they, you know, she says like, I ate a raw rabbit liver, and they're like, oh, okay, well, it was probably bad, and your body's probably rejecting it, and it's probably a reaction. So gives her a cream, says, take this, it should go away like in a couple days. I'm not too worried about it. It looks bad, but it's almost gone already. So, you know, it's out of your system. Just let it run its course. Keep applying this cream for the next 3 days. You're good. She's like, all right, cool. So that's fun. Anyway, she goes and grabs her mattress and drags it upstairs, and she's having a bit of trouble. So she goes and she's like, I'm gonna get my roommate to help me. And she opens the door. It's like, can you give me a hand? Oh, anyway, she sees Adrian getting a little friendly kiss downstairs, if you know what I'm saying, by one of his boyfriends or whatever. So that's a thing. Anyway, the scene cuts to later. They go out for dinner somewhere. They're just like, let's get out of here. Let's, you know, go get shawarma or whatever. And she, to his kind of surprise, there's like meat on hers, and she's eating it. And it's like, okay, well, this is interesting. And they get back home, and Adrian wakes up to hear her in the kitchen in the fridge on her knees, and she's like, I'm getting cereal. And he's like, cereal's up there. She's like, I'm getting the milk. It's like, okay, whatever, I'm too tired for this bullshit. Anyway, she pulls out like, it's either like a piece of raw chicken or raw salmon or something, and she just starts eating it. And it's like, okay, so she's gone from like complete don't touch animal to like, all I want now is like raw animal. So that rabbit liver must have like triggered something in her, whatever. Anyway, then there's a scene with her like vomiting up hair, and I don't know, like, was she eating her own hair or something? It shows her chewing on her hair a little bit, but she's like pulling out like full strands of hair, so it's like, what the hell? I actually I might have missed something maybe when I was looking down to write something down, but I don't know why she had so much hair in her stomach. So maybe she's like subconsciously eating it or something in her sleep maybe. There's a disease, I can't remember what it's called, like a genetic disorder where you're like compelled to eat hair or something. I can't remember what it's called. Is it I don't remember. I learned about it in biology anyway, but it is a legitimate thing. So maybe she has that. I don't know. Anyway, she goes to her sis to like talk about things because things are getting weird, obviously, right? So they're joking around at first, and they have like a stand-up peeing training session. So the sister is standing up, and she like thrusts her hips out and pees, and it's like a dude, and she's like, "Try it," and of course, you know, Justine pees all over her pants because like she doesn't. It's a ridiculous scene. I don't know why it's in there, but it is. Anyway, they go back and they're talking about, I can't remember what, but it ends up to like her plucking some hair out of her eyebrows or something, and then realizes she has armpit hair, and it's like, oh my god, by your age I had like a Brazilian already. And she's like, what's that? So time for a wonderful Brazilian. So Alex has her ready to get this Brazilian done and pulls one off, and obviously, fuck. You know, like I can't imagine that feeling pleasant. She's like, okay, let's do the other one real quick. We just got to make it even. She's like, okay, but no more after that. Like, I'm over it. She's like, all right. She's pulling it, and she's like, oh, fuck, it's stuck. She's like, what? It's stuck. So she gets out a pair of scissors and is like, listen, I'll be careful. She's like, no, that's my pussy. I'm not getting circumcised. Her words. And she kicks her sister, and her sister gets up, and she's like horrified, and you look and you see, oh, fuck, the scissors ended up cutting her finger off. So that's not good. Sister passes out from shock. I mean, clearly, yeah, I get it. And so while Alex is lying there unconscious and bleeding, Justine quickly calls the French equivalent. Do they have 911 in France? I think it's a different number in Europe, but I don't remember specifically. But for lack of my knowledge, she calls 911 and grabs the finger and decides to drink some of the blood that dripped off of it. Totally normal thing to do when your sister's lying there unconscious because she cut her finger off, is drink her blood. So she does that, and then she like puts the finger to her mouth and like bites a little piece of it off, and then she's like hooked right away, and she's like sucking on the end of it and then starts eating it like a chicken wing, just in time for her sister to come to see her eating her finger. So that happened. Anyway, cut to the hospital where she's out, and they couldn't reattach the finger, obviously. Everyone's under the impression the dog ate it. Only Justine and Adrian, I guess, know the truth. Anyway, it turns out that they're going to be putting down the dog because the dog tasted it, apparently, and once it gets a taste for human flesh, it could happen again, blah, 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 blah. So, whatever. Poor dog, because of your cannibal sister, the dog is going to be destroyed. So that's wonderful. Anyway, she's like, okay, once the parents leave, she's in the wheelchair, and she's like, are they gone? And Justine's like, yeah. So quickly Alex gets out of the wheelchair, because the mom was like babying her, saying she's like disabled and stuff, and she's like, oh my god, it's a finger. Like, anyway, she gets out and pushes the wheelchair away. She's like, we need to talk. Clearly they do. So Justine's like, okay, and they follow. And they sit down, you know, kind of in the country by the side of the road, and they're Justine's like, okay, so what did you need to talk about? I mean, obviously it's her being caught eating the finger, right? But she's like, nothing. They're just waiting, and a car's approaching, and that's when Alex jumps into the road, and the car swerves into a tree and crashes. And okay, shit, I forgot a thing. So the opening scene shows, you can't tell who it is, but there's a car driving, and someone jumps in the way, and the car crashes into a tree, and you see the person walk toward the car. And then when Justine and Adrian were going for shawarma, they passed like another crash. I don't know if it was the same crash or another one, but there was like cop cars and everything one-lane road to pass the accident. So that's when, and she gets hit in this time. So back to the present, where she jumps out with Justine right there. Alex gets hit by the car. Justine is like, oh my god, thinking like, don't kill yourself over a finger. Like, oh my god. Anyway, she's fine. Alex kind of comes to and gets up and shakes herself off and walks up to the car and opens the door and sticks her head in. And Justine's like, what the hell are you doing? Pulls her head out and there's blood all down her. Justine's like, what the fuck? And Alex is like, he's not gonna make it. Like, he's not in good shape. And the guy's like completely unconscious, probably dead. The horn is blaring, so the driver is completely dead. The passenger is just all bloodied and has like a hole in his head. And then it shows her leaning in and biting a chunk of his head. And despite her recent, eating her sister's finger like a chicken wing thing, I guess that was too much for Justine. Like, deliberately going out and killing people to eat them is a little bit much, right? So, lo and behold, the sister's a cannibal too. Cool. But yeah, Justine's not having it. She takes off. She's like, I'm not dealing with this right now. And then what happens? Blah, 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 blah. So yeah, then she's in class and she's like dissecting a dog, and Adrian is her lab partner. And I guess, being vegan, the first couple of classes when there was like dissections or whatever, she would have been like kind of like, ooh, I don't know. But she gets right in there, like cuts it like right away, starts opening it up, pulling stuff out, and Adrian's like, okay, you're a little too enthusiastic for this dog dissection. But it's part of the class, so maybe, great to learn, because knowledge is power, the whole Schoolhouse Rock thing. And then at one point she's like watching Adrian playing soccer, and they're doing like shirts and skins or whatever, and I guess she's kind of like, okay, Adrian's kind of hot, maybe I have a crush on him or something like that, right? Even though he has announced that he's gay, so I mean, good luck with that. But that's what the scene implies anyway. There's a scene where like she runs into one of the elder people or whatever, and they're like, you didn't know what the dress code is, right? I'm like, what? It's like nightclub night or something. You have to dress in like a nightclub thing. So she goes to her sister's, and yeah, that was before the whole finger thing. But anyway, she has that dress still. It's like a nightclub dress thing, and she puts it on, and she's listening to some song about like necrophilia and like pegging and bondage and all this really delightful stuff. The necrophilia part was like the worst. It's like, I like to have sex with dead people or something like weird like that. It's like, all right, that's a strange song. She's just bopping along to it and putting on makeup like it's, the best thing ever. And she stops and realizes she hears something in the other room, and she opens the door and sees Alex and Adrian playing video games. Anyway, eventually Adrian takes off, and she sits down and looks at Alex and like, don't touch him. She's like, I thought you said he was gay. Doesn't matter. So territorial, even though you literally a couple days ago walked in on him and his partner, smiling like a donut. Jesus. Anyway, then there's like a scene of her being like under a blanket with like someone hitting her with chains, and I don't know if that's a dream or if it really happened, but I think it really happened, because she like goes in the hallway and there's like an open door with light, and she's in her like skivvies and walking down the hallway, and she's like, fuck, it's another like pledge thing. The chain thing, that's harsh though. Wow, that would hurt. Anyway, she looks into the door and sees all these people covered in paint, and lo and behold, blah, blue paint splashed all over her, so that's good. And then they grab her and then this other pledge in yellow paint, and they shove him in a room and says, don't come out until you're both green, or something like that. So it's a 7 minute in heaven thing or whatever that game was called. They decide to like make out and get touchy-feely, and then it cuts to outside, and the door flies open, and the guy comes out screaming, and he's like, his lips bleeding, and she clearly bit the guy, so that's fun. I don't know what extent she bit him. It looked like there was like a chunk out of his lip or something. I don't know, or at least sliced open or something. So anyway, back in her room, she's showering off all the blue paint, and she feels something in her teeth and pulls it out, and I guess it's a piece of his lip or something, and she eats it, and it's like, okay, that's lovely. Lovely. You guys should watch this while you're eating, just so you know. So that's fun. Anyway. Yeah, so she showers, and Adrian's on his bed or something, and she comes and sits down in her towel and lies on him. I guess she's like trying to convince him not to be gay or something. Anyway, he's like, did that guy like touch you? And she's like, yeah, but even still, like, I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, they end up banging. I mean, okay, I thought he was gay, but so did he. But I guess he was like curious, so whatever. You do what you gotta do, no judgment. And she starts biting him, and he's like, yeah, don't do that. I'm not into that. She bites him again. He's like, stop. And so she finally just bites herself, bites her own arm as she's riding him, and like draws blood, and I guess that causes her to go over the edge, if you know what I'm saying. I'm trying to watch my wording here as good as I can, but yeah, anyway, so that happens. I don't know if it was because she was there and the bite was enhancing it, or if the bite is the thing that pushed her over, but anyway, they're linked, so clearly there's something going on with that, so that's fun. Anyway, next day in class, she's like, why aren't you talking to me, or whatever, and he's like, ugh. And then like his sister, he holds up his phone, and it's a message from his sister, Alex, saying, tell Justine to look at her phone. Justine looks at her phone, and it says something about like the dog being put down or whatever, and she's like, you have Alex's number? He's like, yeah. She's like, why do you have his number? And he's like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have done what I did with you. I don't know why it just happened. I mean, it shouldn't have happened though. And she's like, well, way to like just deflower me and then leave me hanging here. And then he starts freaking out. He's like, listen, it shouldn't have happened. I'm fucking gay. I've been living with it for like 20 years. I don't need this shit. It was like a thing. And he kicks a chair and storms out. And this is in the middle of like a test in class. So that's a scene that was made. Anyway, later they show her at like a party or whatever, and she's like really out of it, drunk, maybe on some kind of drugs or something, and she's like kisses this guy, and the girlfriend comes up and shoves her, and it's like, get your fucking hands off my guy. So she kisses the girl, and she shoves her off, and goes to kiss her again, and at this point Alex is like, okay, we need to leave, you're not in any good shape. So they skedaddle, as they say, and they end up in like a morgue or something. And she's like, come here, and they just show it long enough so that you see that it is a morgue. Like, you just barely see the body before the scene cuts to her waking up in bed with like a huge hangover. Immediately grabs water and chugs it and heads to class and sits down, and the girl beside her looks at her and like moves over a seat, and she's like, okay, what the hell's going on? Anyway, after class, Adrian is standing there waiting for her, and he's like, we gotta talk. And she's like, oh, it's probably about the sex thing. And he's like, no, look at this. And he shows a video. And her sister has, like, Alex has Justine on the ground on all fours, drunk, completely out of her mind. Maybe on drugs, too. I don't know. She's out of it, though, either way. And Alex is like, come on, bite him. And then it pans over, and it's in a morgue, and she has a body pulled out. She's holding a hand. And Justine is like, trying to bite it. So everyone thinks that Justine's fucked, right? Like, even though she was like smashed and out of it completely. Anyway, they have a public brawl in the middle of the courtyard there at school, and everyone's like crowding around, like, oh my god, what the hell's going on? And Alex bites like a little chunk out of Justine's cheek, and then bites her arm real hard, and Justine bites her back, and they're drawing blood, and they're both locked, biting each other's arms. And you see Alex kind of smile a little bit, and then they're broken up by security, I guess, who finally made it there once they realized what's going on. And they leave together, kind of like arm in arm. I guess that was a nice family bonding moment for people who eat other people, so that's fun. The scene where she's there's two she's. So Alex is patching up Justine's cheek, puts a little thing on it, and I guess all is good. And Then she wakes up later and she's in bed with Adrian again, who's like asleep peacefully, and she's like, oh, okay. Alright, I'm into this. So she like starts feeling his arm and stuff. It's like, I'm gonna wake him up in the best way for a dude to wake up. Even though we literally flipped out on her for like, you know, he's gay, don't push it. But then again, he's there in the bed with her, right? So maybe he's bi, right? I don't know. Anyway, she slowly puts her hand down and stops and pulls her hand out, and it's like wet with blood, and she puts the cover off, and his leg is like half eaten. Adrian's dead. She like starts shaking him, and his head moves, and you can see a bit of blood coming out of his mouth, and he's dead. So that's not good. And then she sees a hole in his back that was made with like a ski pole, and she's like, what the fuck? And she looks, and then in the kitchen area, her sister Alex is sitting there like in shock, kind of like just blank expression, alive, blood all down her throat. So did she like, I guess she ate him and put him in the bed, or if he was in the bed and I don't know. But anyway, Alex ate his leg, so she walks up, and Alex is so out of it that like Justine puts the ski pole to her forehead, like, should I kill you? Like, this is... But no, sisterly love. They have a nice, delightful sisterly shower together, and Justine like washes all the blood off of Alex and everything, and then they cut to a jail scene where Alex has obviously been arrested, and the family is visiting her, and there's no dialogue in this scene, but they like, she flips her off with like the missing finger, you know, this reminder like, yeah, you ate my finger, and then she like pushes her cheek saying, yeah, you ate my cheek. There's a little smooch through the glass, and that's real heartwarming, you know. The cockles of my heart were warmed. Yeah, and then she's back at home, and she's eating vegetables again. So I guess she's like, okay, yeah, this is my cue to not eat meat anymore. Her mom's like, make sure you eat all these vegetables. If you can't leave until you eat them all. And she's like, holy, like, I'm not even hungry, but she's like forcing them down. And the mom leaves, and the dad's like, listen, it's what happened, it's not your fault. And she's like, I know. She's like, it's not your sister's fault either. And she's like, okay. And basically at this point he says, when I first met your mother, blah 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 blah, tells kind of the meat story, and then when we kissed her, that's when I knew. And then you can see kind of like a little bit of a scar on his lip, and he's going like this. And that's when Justine's like, oh. And then he's like, she never did find a way to deal with that. And he like undoes his shirt and opens it, and there are like bite marks and like scars and everything. So she's been like feeding on him, I guess, or like it's a mutual thing. But he's alive, like he's not dead, so I guess she knows her limits maybe, but doesn't know how to say no. And after he opens his shirt, he's like, I'm sure you'll find a solution, honey. And it's like, okay. So anyway, mom's a cannibal, and it runs in the family, and the two sisters are cannibal, and no solution has been found to stop the urge to eat humans, and good luck, hun. And then the credits roll. So it was a ride, this movie. I mean, it's all subtitled, so like if that throws you off, just give it a chance anyway. Obviously, if you watched it until now, you've had spoilers if you've never seen it before, but I really do recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to go in blind, because yeah, again, not knowing much about the film, it made it that much more entertaining. What am I gonna rate this guy? Let's do... I did enjoy it a lot. It was very different and very... It's one of those films that... I mean, I'm sure there's like hundreds of films like it, but they're not mainstream maybe or something. I don't know. I haven't seen a film quite like it yet. I'm not like super well versed in movies or anything. I mean, to a point, but I mean, like, I haven't seen every cannibal movie there is, so I'm sure there are others like it, but it was different for me. I hadn't seen one like that, so it was cool to watch her slowly become one. Like, it was... Okay, so like, for example, Ravenous. Great movie, by the way. Cannibalism and that is just a thing that's there. This, you actually get to see Justine as she slowly realizes her urges and her her hunger and whatnot. So it's neat. It's a pleasant little coming of age story for a young girl. Yeah. So yeah, what would I rate it? I'm gonna rate it a 7.9. 7.902. There we go. Tempted to throw the 1.0 on the end there, but no. 7.902. For obvious reasons. Should you watch it? Yeah, definitely. Even if you watch this and you said, fuck it, I don't care about spoilers. I haven't seen it, but I want to know what it's about. I'd say watch it anyway, because again, like, I can only explain it the best that I can explain it. Watching the movie itself unfold is a trip, so highly recommend it. I don't know how many times I'm going to watch this again in the future, but it's one of those things that's like, you got to see it. So go check it out. 2016 Raw, French movie. Again, if subtitles really are not your thing, just try it anyway. You know what I mean? Just tough through it, because it's a trip. It's a trip. I actually didn't even know this movie existed. I saw it on the Meat Canyon or Papa Meat or whatever his channel is. He's talking about horror movies with Wendigoon or whatever, and this was one of his picks, and it sounded intriguing. So that's what I knew about it. He didn't give away too many spoilers either. So like I said, I went in blind, and yeah, it's a ride. So check it out. We'll leave it at that. Adios.